So this week we have the highly anticipated Fed rate decision on Wednesday the 10th of December. Polymarket is estimating a 94% chance of the Fed cutting rates by 25 basis points. But what does the market think? Well, on Friday we saw some indecision in the S&P 500. Initially price pushed to the upside, we stalled, and then we had a severe drop before New York open. Maybe there's some uncertainty around whether this rate decision is actually going to go forwards and they are going to cut rates. But if they don't, we're likely to see some huge volatility on Wednesday night in the markets. Some of the uncertainty from some of the Fed officials is coming from the data gaps. Now, obviously with the US shutdown, we saw huge gaps in data and the market was unable to respond to some of those releases that it would usually see. So basing a rate decision around data that hasn't come out or hasn't been released seems fairly risky. And some of the Fed members agree that there is insufficient clarity around the decision. But regardless, already priced in is the expected 25 basis point cut. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time. So Friday was interesting. The S&P 500 rallied to the upside at the end of the day, but earlier in the session, we were just coming off this very key area of supply here. And as we pushed in, we saw a bit of uncertainty. The market dropped to the downside, but the buyers quickly stepped back in and pushed price back up. Now, if we look at the daily time frame, we're pushing into those all-time highs and that area of supply there. Now, as the market drove into that zone, the sellers got aggressive again and pushed price to the downside, but we're still hovering around that zone 2 days away from the decision. So Wednesday's data is going to be really crucial for this market. We could break to new all-time highs, but the market's already trying to price in the rate cut. So if there is a shock decision, then we could see the market drop heavily to the downside. It will be an interesting couple of days. Now, the meeting following the Fed rate decision will also be key because that will give us an idea about future rate decisions and whether the market is ready to price those in early. If we look at other instruments like the euro dollar, going on the weekly time frame, you can see that this market has been stuck in a range for a large part of 2025. There is a lot of uncertainty and indecision, and that's largely coming from the stock market. Risk on or risk off scenarios will usually move these currencies, and although they mean revert more commonly than they trend, we aren't seeing any direction on the higher time frames. Gold is also in a very similar position to the S&P 500, which is fairly unique. We've driven to the upside again on Friday. We clearly tested a key area of supply again, and we've dropped off and the sellers have got aggressive. But where do we go from here? Well, if we look at the daily time frame, we've still got the all-time highs marked up as an area of supply. We could drive into that zone, we could retest, or we could just make new all-time highs. Again, it's largely dependent on the data on Wednesday and the central bank meeting that follows. So this 2 weeks ahead of Christmas are packed full of data releases and rate decisions, not just on the dollar, but on multiple other currencies as well as inflation data. It's going to be a very active 2 weeks in the markets. Be aware of your red folder news, and I'll check in with you next Monday to review what happened through this week.